against themselves because of the fact that A, they didn't in this debate, and I explained why they can still read rights and state good argument about finally the bad skills argument doesn't make any sense because there was no explanation for what skills. They don't get the tribalism disad. It links to them. Just because we read an argument that also would a part of the critique does not mean that it's unique offense. The permutation do both. It fails. First, it severs the representation of the athlete, impacting the notion of immigration and humanitarian aid. They should have to defend the entire one. I see the plain text is only 8 seconds of the voting issue for intellectual cowardice and education. Second is the sequencing visit, combining the 1AC with the all means we focus on the economics of the immigrant over the human impact. Those are two things in fundamental contradiction. Third is the cooption. This is the premise how Trump gets to explain what a nice guy he is, so he can explain how immigrants are, so that he can exploit immigrants for their labor and economic benefits. The alternative relies on the imperceptibility in order to destabilize power. The permutation visibilizes the policy of the immigrant to the sovereigns. Fourth is the exclusion. To said any attempt that has inclusion by the state as its main focus will fail and play back into assimilationist rhetoric. This means the term won't work. That's Tyler McCartney in 13. Immigrant approaches that erupt the response to the inclusionist movements becoming an inclusion within the legal system, risk illusions, the illegalization, which actually migrants in the first place, they have to reproduce exclusion, allows you to do citizens to struggle ways, just an questions they have to recognize the status, but not the end of the identity. Permutation to act is incoherent because of the fact that is incoherent because it is literally just the permutation to do the act and then the alt is literally just permutation to do both, but it's also intrinsic, which is a voting issue for education and intellectual cowardice. They say that we allow visas to come in. That links to the act because they can just get things like tourist visas, which still solve the bigger. There's no bright line to this, which means that if we explain what the alt is, we solve it. The alternative is migrant politics, a subject voting that decimates sovereignty over movements. They say it's fundamentally illegitimate. The new migrant communities are better alternative and solve the case through movements like the Zapatistas, autonomous, salt marches during the Belt Revolution, critical era by the 2AC. We get to fiat these alternative movements because it's reciprocal. New autonomy of migrant movements cross the borders by the thousands, overloading the system from the inside, voting negative towards these politics in the face of liberal notions of inclusion and equality that breaks down and interrogates the basic assumptions that the 1AC makes about the social position of immigrants. They say that we're not that they don't say that the U.S. is perfect. However, the imperceptibility of this answers this. Janos evidence indicates that legal immigration operates through a system of visibility. Immigrants are Americanized in order to become better workers. The immigrant must lose their identification with their homeland so they can take the persona of the proletariat, which renders them visible to American imperials. And this is psychological violence. Even though immigrants are categorized as the other face the violence associated with that, they must also mimic the perfect white man. This desire causes shame and resentment of their own culture. In a way, the 1AC egalitarian principles reinforce liberal notions of inclusion, which create the social minorities within the promise they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps if only they work hard enough. This is Trumpian politics of the victim blaming, which puts the honest and economic participation of migrants and cause dehumanization because immigrants are perceived as failing to succeed in the same way as the white man. Even if they did succeed, they're stealing our jobs is created. Now, additionally, there's the U.S. exceptionalism, like the idea of liberal immigration bringing the exceptionalism myth that America is free and tolerant of law in 15. The liberal consider immigrants a non-consensual base of American democracy. The immigrant is defined as someone who takes desire for providing symbolic evidence for ongoing power of the American democratic idea. The immigrant provides energy, desires, liberal diversity, to American intimacy, desire, American eclipse of the disposition of America. The nation thus appears the ethical community rather than the party of violence. These state ceremonies that function that kind of feel-good advertising responsibilities and multiracial democracy. They say that the international law is not the same as HR. That's not our argument, but we say that they perpetuate a form of insecurity that allows people like Trump to say that they are doing good things for victims of domestic assault, while continuing to go on and victim blame, and as well as say that the victims of domestic violence are lying. Now go to the counterclaim. Consider the permutation just to test the competition. The theory arguments are reason to reject the argument, not the team, because the reason why the counterclaim is bad. Conditionality, it's good. First is research dispositionality, incentivizes teams to read process counterclaims because they can't be straight turns. Second is negative deflections, incentivizes multiple competing strategies if you're a 2AC straight turns. Third is real-world policy, making conventional debate shifts in positions when they're recognized as wrong. Fourth is info processing, multiple options, force 2AC efficiency and strategy that's key to advocacy skills. Next is defense. First, diminishing returns check and limited conditionality. Second, AFK warrant check advantage counterclaims. Third, two-in-our choice solves abuse. Fourth, the app can invest in offense, get faster. Fifth, error negative, infinite app prep. They get to speak first, last, bad, negative, generics, and massive fact. That means that fairness comes first, expectation of loving play. First, the only incentive for in-depth research. Finally, counter-tribulation. We get two conduct.
Okay. You good to go?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. You read an argument that, like, policy does not impact our political activism does not impact government action, why is real-world policy making understanding good on conditionality?
What? Yeah, so first of all, that's an argument that you made a policy-making argument in 2AC, so, I mean, if you can see this argument.
No, that's not
they
what
both go
I'm
away.
asking. I guess, like, what benefits do you extend to real-world policymaking being a good thing to understand?
We said that it's like if you win, that we should like mimic congressional debates. That's what that is what happens in the real world. We don't. I'm not making like an external advocacy skills argument. I'm making an argument about how like we should model like congressional debates. I'm kind of.
We should model congressional debates.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess the okay. I guess how is the co-option decided answer to perm to the after the alternative?
From the app and the alternative because it still allows for the same, like if we win that the app is a bad idea, which is the links, it's the same explanation.
No, because co-option is like they both do
Yeah.
the alt and the plan. The
So first
plan
of all-
happens first and then the alt happens
Yeah,
separately.
that is the explanation for
How is
why
that-
some
how does
things
that
are
lead to
explained.
co-option?
Sure, because Trump gets to explain how he's a great person after doing the
How is that not just a
alternative.
disadd to the app and not the permutations?
It is a dissent to the app.
How is
It's
it a disadd to the permutations itself?
It's an argument about why, in a world where Trump gets to explain why, how great the alternative is and what a great person he's being to immigrants.
Yeah, I have a question. Why would he ever do that when he's been historically against these people in the first place?
Because he wants to remain.
Yeah, why would he advocate the alt?
What?
Why would he advocate the app either?
Like, how can he co-opt something that's like literally open borders when his entire spiel
Sure.
is hating
For
immigrants?
just things like just because he hit, well, I guess that would just increase backlash against immigrants, but the argument is that the form of co-option is not just like helping the movement, it is like a form of crackdown.
What?
It is a way that Trump legitimizes himself so that he can crack down against the movement.
I don't know if you even understand what I was saying. I guess the tourist visas argument on open borders bad.
Yeah.
I guess, so that prevents a barrier, right? Like, they have to get a visa before they come to the United States. In your world, you just walk across the border to
The
get
barrier
here.
isn't existent. That barrier is not difficult to get, i.e. that person can just take a flight to the US as opposed to walk across the border. Like there's no
Do they still have to like
distinction.
go through security checkpoints? Don't they still have to go through all of this background
What is
check
the
in order
point
to
of
get a
security
tourist visa?
checkpoints? Like what does that do to stop somebody who wants to domestically assault somebody?
I don't think you understand that either. I
Yeah,
guess,
I don't understand that. Due to prevent
okay, the
them.
links are, isolate that. American exceptionalism
Yeah,
link.
the imperceptibility argument, that's the Cianos evidence from the 1C, the flow card that I read in this speech, the use exceptionalism, and finally the HR argument, which is the Mason card.
Okay, that's.
I'm just emailing.
We're gonna take a more part.
Probably.
Starting at 5:30. Five ten. It is sent. Everybody good for order? Okay, it's gonna be the CJR dissad, the midterm dissad, and topicality. Okay, is everybody ready?
No,
Yeah. I'm good.
Okay, is everybody now ready? Cool.
Sorry.
Oh, that's alright. Alright, is everybody now ready? Cool. The criminal justice is that all concede that Trump has killed U.S. credibility. That probably means that there's no international follow-on of the app, which takes out the third part of the app, and it also means that there's no offense on this vote, the midterm dissent. All concede that a Democratic win is inevitable. That means that there's no risk of offense. Topicality. They answered the wrong T argument. We read an argument that only legal permanent residence is topical. They conceded that, which means that they cannot access any offense off of the need to have non-LPR apps on the topic. They have to defend that adjustment of status is topical, which is going to be an uphill battle. But I will extend our offense first because they do not meet it. Our interpretation is that legal immigration requires admission to the U.S. under permanent residence. It includes family and employment-sponsored visas, diversity immigrant visas, and returning residents. You should prefer that for limits. They justify modifying tiny programs that allow short-term immigration. There are 34 non-immigrant visa categories added under their topic. Multiply that by 195 countries, and they add thousands and thousands upon possible apps. The app is not permanent residence. The only argument they made is that adjustment of status constitutes admission. I will take them up on that debate in a second, but they have conceded that they violate our interpretation because it takes 1 year before. Tim, can you give me that card, please? It takes 1 year before asylees can adjust to LPR status. In for the 1 year before they are eligible to adjust to admission of status, they are not legal permanent residents, which means they do not meet the legal immigration part of the topic. Now, I will take them up on the admission of status debate here because that is their only chance. But even if they win that adjustment of status is admission to the U.S. under legal immigration, they are still not topical because that does not happen for 1 year, which means at best they are effects and extra topical, which resolves none of our offense because it allows the affirmative to garner offense off of processes and methods that are wholly unrelated to the resolution. Now, the adjustment of status debate proper legal immigration is exclusively admission to the country, not adjustment of status. Our interpretation of this allows for public charge, translators, blood quanta, and high-skilled immigration. Any app that reduces the restriction of directly gaining a green card is topical. You should prefer for limits. Their interpretation allows a ton of tiny apps that allow people already in the U.S. to adjust their status. They double all existing apps. There are over 40 different ways to adjust status by itself. That's USCIS. 18 federal laws provide over 40 different ways for nationals to adjust status. Now, they allow the majority of EB visas at Zamora, 16 of 130,000 or 87% of all employment have been adjusted to status. Now, the impact of that is clash. You can cross-apply this as an impact to limits under the LPR interpretation as well. Now, underloading the topic creates a race to the margin, which ensures still debates on generics limits, encourage in-depth debating and developing tech, and third-line responses and depth over breadth. Science proves that actually skip that card. The second impact is negative preparation. It forces pre-tournament prep to be spent incredibly thinly by adding tons of mechanisms and categories. It also negates the majority of the pre-tournament prep we did structurally favoring the affirmative. Every bit of pre-tournament prep we did was in the context of permanent residence to the United States. That's how we garner things like the welfare diss ad, every single overpopulation diss ad, all of the economy-based diss ad. It also means that the things like the parole counterplan go away because they are no longer competitive because they are accessing temporary status here in the U.S. Now, that also the adjustment of status also completely excludes the next research work because adjustment of status is a completely separate process. That's a Genie 12 adjustment of status. The process around my sailings already present and the process does not involve physical entry under. Yeah, it's not an admission and management adjusted status. So that if an LPR has not been admitted to this court, held that adjustment of status is not constituting an admission. The unambiguous meaning of admission requires physical entry, and that means the we need argument goes away because adjustment of status isn't admission. The counter to proper all of the limits on. I already explained why this is not a counter-interrupt to our violations. I have also already explained why adjustment of status is not, why adjustment of status is not admission. They also don't need 2 because 2 has a preposition for movement indicates movement from one place to another. It's here. 18 preposition 2 indicating movement from one place to another. That means in order to increase immigration to the U.S., it means the U.S. increase the number of people who are physically moving to the U.S. People who have asylum are already here. The predictable limits are, and I did the work above why our limits are best. The topic paper is irrelevant because no one is doing pre-tournament prep based on the topic paper. There's also no reason they access the topic paper. Now, I don't really think they made a functional limits argument, but if they did, solvency arguments have no stable definition and there's no other limiting words in the resolution. They say a limits explosion is inevitable. There's no reason that's true. People have been winning debates on LPR is a good way to limit the topic. I've already explained why it's the key distinction as to whether we get important dissets and counterplans. They say over limiting it's better than under limiting because of the offense I described above. There's also no risk of being too small because 195 countries, over 50 visa programs, 8 regions, different LPR processes, all of which they have to produce restrictions on the topic education impact. They put the cart before the horse. The lit base should define the topic. Anything else disconnects debate from real world discussions. The limits argument also turns this. That was the meta evidence. A race to the margins also turns this. Competitive incentives for tiny squirrely aspects. But it's critical. There's a topical version of the app that resolves all their offense. That's how you should filter each of their impacts. Now, the TPAs, the 96 federal government should grant legal permanent residence status to all victims of domestic violence. That solves all their education while still giving us all the negative ground we had on a topic already terrible for the negative. Interpolutes us. The USCIS is that a concert overstrike every single econ design and counterplans like parole and counterclaims there, all dependent on the action of entering the country, which means even if you buy the adjustment of status arguments, we still get that the impact is fairness and the negative is always behind. You can't keep up to it a lot. Recording errors, debate is a game, so that's a reason to reject them on face. You should prefer competing in terms. Cause the race to the top where reasonability instability causes judge intervention is arbitrary and explodes limits go back to the LPR to be proper. Asylees don't get LPR. They have to adjust their status, which means they do not meet the interval one NC Act. No, 10 asylees are eligible to adjust to LPR status after 1 year, which means that the actual act of getting asylee status does not grant LPR. They're only eligible to adjust.
707, starting now.
What's the answer to reasonability?
You should prefer competing interrupts. It's a race to the top, whereas reasonability causes judge intervention, is arbitrary, and explodes limits. What?
Case TK.
Where do you want to go?
You can just take my laptop when I'm done with
Yeah, sure.
Are there cards?
Actually, yeah, there's one. I'll send it on the body email right now.
Cool, thank you.
Huh?
I'm gonna have it. Sure. Yeah. You guys grab this from me, like 10.
I'll just send it.
Alright. Yep, is anyone already?
Sessions really makes it impossible for victims of domestic violence both inside and outside the U.S. to seek asylum back for them to return home to the abuse of causing destructive physical and mental health issues. The plaintiff and the definition give victims the ground for admission also said the international press which spurs legal action against their debate bodies. The key debate first extend the extent that we need it provides a guaranteed path to LPR. There affects the argument A does not have any impact coming out of the 1 AR. Second is not explained how just because it's a time frame distinction actually affects topicality. Spoiler alert, it doesn't affect C. It's a question of whether or not there are multiple actions to get the plan. No, that's not true. It's a guaranteed question of admission. That being said, second is extend the counter-interpretation of silence is adjustment of status. There's two reasons to prefer. First is the education. This not necessarily outlines that our discussion is uniquely key. Excluding it doesn't get access to this. There only answers the TVA, which I'll get to more on the flow. Second, the topic paper specifically outlines that the silences are included within the definition of the topic and counter-interpretation. Legal immigration is the process of getting LPR status includes the silence refugee data. 1. The INA defense legal immigration is the process of which non-citizens granted LPR permanent residency. Legal immigration that includes new arrival people. Just the immigration status of people permanent residents and refugees. We get this answer. This proves that all there, Justin. If there is nothing includes the silence from refugees and prefer our defense the INA with access to the highest level of legal precision that determines why a policy action can be taken and when must be changed and extend the adjustment of status is included. We said the BIA and NIA, which is specific intent to define and an intent to exclude their only impacts or limits. But first is a meta-level framing question. They don't have a external impact or any terminal impact anywhere. They just complain about limits to grab. That being said, I'll do the limit debate first. First, there are two. The topical version of the app proves that limits exposure is inevitable. If it's true that you can just tack on LPR to anything, then all the apps they claim to exclude are not excluded because you can just give them LPR, which means that it still acts as the same literal base. The ground debate doesn't apply because you don't go to ground based on whether or not an immigrant is given LPR, but rather you get it based on the publicity of the plan that's proven by the midterms and basis that they don't care about them getting LPR, rather they care about them actually doing the plan. The TVA debate first that doesn't challenge the Trump administration, which means that it's necessarily bad. It also leaves in place the judge's discrepancy to make the changes towards the adjustment of status. The reasonability debate goes functionally conceded to prefer it. The reasonability creates a necessary competing interpretation, creates a race in the margin that incentivizes teams to always run towards topicality and incentivizes great debates, especially if we're winning in education. This which means it doesn't apply. Also, they they also, they conceded the reasonability is good. Some degree of judging prevention is inevitable. It's a question of whether or not we can have substantial debate. It's more to it while we're trying to find the smallest interpretation which makes every absolute to limit. It's a question of whether these debates will be pedagogically valueless. Even if they win, the less education is better than always having a tea debate, which never gets to the issue. The end race of the topic wrong. Concede strategic to end will always find the most limiting interpretation, not the best one. Intent intervention is inevitable. We have to win with depth pedagogical value on the case place versus the framework debate. We get to weigh the after the competitive alternative. The role of the judge is to determine that when the after does better debating by prioritizing solutions, stopping gender violence against women. Our interpretation is best for fairness because the contextualized link to the plan are the only way to ensure class to be journalists. Also, their office has to be competitive alternative. There's no method to resolve the problem they discuss. We agree that violence is bad. We need to provide a method to solve for it, and we're the only ones that they have a debate. Keep warn all their arguments about reading critical theory, which moves the offense to the 180 and I contextualization is for pragmatic reform. It's the only way to actually be able to apply it. Their ethical action towards it. It's not ethical to let them die at the border and that the hand of the abuse. That portable value skills and portable value doesn't doesn't apply, especially when they conceded the NIAC evidence that indicates that this discussion does have a spin-out claim to us resolving issues of immigration reform. The policy, the power dissent obviously doesn't apply when we get to defend durable fiat, and that those visas don't get revoked in the first place. Also, they're given LPR, they conceded that on the T-flow, which means that it doesn't matter. The fairness defense is just a reason why we should get to defend the 1AC, because if those things are inevitable, then we need to maximize fairness as possible. And the link debate, first of all, said permutation do both. A point is there. If it's true that an overload of the system is good, then the movement, then all migrants coming in via the app is necessarily conclusive with the app. B point, it's impossible for people in detention centers to be able to access the alternative with only the permutation software. Their severance doesn't apply because we still defend the entirety of the plan. Also, the sequences of economic focus, I'll do more on the link debate. The rewriting history doesn't apply because Trump would literally never do that because he's rather a piece of base. The link debate, the proper versus the Americanized production, is non-unique and is proven by the fact that Trump would be willing to exclude immigrants based on public charge. And if that's true, that they are always based on economic value, then he should have let all immigrants in. The fact that there are immigration restrictions proves that this thesis is just not true. The U.S. exceptionalism link, we don't paint the U.S. as a perfect actor. Rather, we say that they're already at the border. They can see that the women at the border decide on the Canada floor. It means that they have no other place to go. They say that Trump will say that he's doing something good, but why would he do that when he's been historically against the plan of the base? Wouldn't be able to believe him on that one. The alternative debate, first they consider that it's a diss out to the movement, that sexual abusers will just come in through those movements and continue to do it. Also, even if borders are gone, that doesn't stop for the capitalist exploitation, which is all their link arguments. Just because their borders are gone doesn't mean that the migrants that are here now are still going to be capitalistically exploited. I'll do more on the framework. I'll do more on the link debate. The exclusion diss out doesn't apply because we don't claim like inclusion.
510.
Just topicality.
Okay.
Everybody good?
No.
No, you were singing
Oh,
Dutch.
sorry.
Man, this would go without him.
Oh wait.
If you go,
Read opposite end.
That way and right.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just gonna grab some.
So what person do you do movies lately?
do you two like practice that? While you were out of the room, KJ asked the same question. That was actually very funny. No, I have not. I haven't been to the movies in a while. How about yourself?
I don't know.
Deja vu.
You seen the Star Wars boy?
I saw Venom.
They're very
I mean, it was cool, like Marvel movies, but
I might feel like I have to wake up.
not well made.
I wonder if there's a
I spent like 7 hours of my life watching the Dodgers game last night. 18th
game
inning.
was insane.
I swear that Buchanan like scored one and then the Dodgers scored one as well.
Yeah, they just
Homer,
lost
it's just crazy.
The Red Sox just won.
Oh, what?
Oh.
No, not like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just walked it off.
What's the series?
3-1 Red Sox.
Yeah, it may be over.
Oh, no, it's over.
It may go to 6, but it's over. Yeah, I think so. It's so funny, that was a huge comeback.
Oh my god. That's insane.
You said those cards, right?
The Dodgers just shafted that inning. Oh my god.
Well, actually,
Okay.
it hurt.
Yeah. Sorry, it's gonna be tea.
Yeah. That pretty good? They've already lost this debate because they don't meet their own interpretation because they forgot to define legal immigration. Even if they win, the adjustment of status is topical, even if the one which will be below the F is not an adjustment of status. Even if they win their interpretation, an F that gives us salaries LPRs, an F that gives us salaries LPRs topical because that is an adjustment of status to LPR with the F, which is what they do that expands the definition of a salaries isn't. Even adjustment status is admission for LPR. The F doesn't do that because the F just says more people can come and possibly do that in the future. Now they did read a new definition in the 1AR, but you should reject it because it allows for 1AR sandbagging and changes our luxury. And second of all, they still don't mean it because it says that legal immigration is the process by which immigrants are granted LPR, which they don't do, which I just explained above. Now they're making the argument that asylees just get LPR after a year. That's not necessarily true because applying for LPR is not guaranteed or required. It's let's go no date. You are not required to apply for LPR, so it's going to be a little bit more with the USD. Must continue to qualify. Must continue to be admissible. Your application might be denied, and adjustment of status isn't guaranteed. That's USCIS 17. U.S. immigration law asylees should apply for LPR status in order to be eligible for Greenhill. They must meet the following requirements. Now, at best, that makes them they make more people eligible for adjustment of status, but they don't actually adjust any status. Effect T is a voting issue. Any F that has the potential to affect immigration restrictions, which makes any action topical exposed limits by allowing F offense that's not germane to topic. It also that's topical issues and a competitive incentive to shift debate from core topic controversies. The rest of the adjustment of status debate. Our interpretation as illegal immigration requires admission with lawful permanent residence. You should prefer it because they don't meet it because they don't give people anybody LPR. They just give people the ability to get LPR, which is not the same thing. Now, I'm only going to go for the limits offense. Their interpretation explodes the topic lies 34 non-immigrant visa categories that can be adjusted. That can just be transitioned to LPR to adjust their status. Each of those 34 non-immigrant visa categories have multiple distinct acts within them because they can all lift a country or region-specific restrictions. That distinction matters even 34 doesn't seem like a 10. 2 is the current burger evidence indicates that each species category has unique limitations, processing times, rules, and different literature bases because of the individual special requirements for each feature, exploiting the negative research burden, including adjustment of status. Links to that offense. Their evidence says that anyone who will ultimately be granted status is topical. That means that literally any undocumented person, anyone who is here on a temporary visa or asylum or refugees included, adding hundreds of apps, which is a completely separate topic because it allows for apps about undocumented immigrants, as well as all of the asylum arguments I did above. Even if they win, that adjustment status is included. They don't mean that because they don't mean that. That is what I explained. That's what I explained above. Our topic would allow for apps such as employment-based visas, as well as family-based visas, as well as family-based visas, which are a bunch of different separate categories. I can continue to list more, but I don't have the time to do that, especially since they're not making an argument. But why our version of the topic is to overcoming limits outweigh their offense. The point A is breadth of adapted. In turn, all their topic education offense studies show that curriculum prioritizing breadth is detrimental to student comprehension, retention, and ability to inquire further on these issues, and being a mile wide and inch deep, which undermines student achievement. Even there is an educational topic in theory's unlimited nature, undermines the educational values. Will always rely on generics. Competitive incentive is cut and run to the edge of the topic, making strong one's key. So B, there's no risk of being too small, decking app flexibility. The topic is inevitably going to be larger. There's immigration from 195 countries, 8 regions recognized by the DHS, and still over 30 immigrant visa categories. They can see that you should err negative on C, which turns all their overloading arguments because it proves the negative needs some advantage in order to be even to be in the conversation. Error negative on C is already possibly a negative on the topic because the F is clearly on the right side of a bunch of moral and political questions that resolution poses. There's barely zero disconnect. On the topic paper argument does is irrelevant. Who cares what the topic said? Debates are not decided off of what they wrote at the beginning of the season. The precision debate. We access to the bed because we scholarly legal consensus use of that precedent in court cases as Sinichi evidence and by officials in the U.S. Census Bureau. The U.S. Census Bureau. The Sinichi evidence is the general attorney at OIRA, which is the Department of Justice Office responsible for adjudicating all immigration cases, as well as we also cite the INA, Social Security Administration. That they have a jurisdiction about which government officials are better than others, which means that you should just vote on the limits debate. The debatability outweighs precision, anyways. Obviously, debate doesn't model real world in every aspect, which means that because we have things like fear, which means the only way for debates to produce any benefit, anything else involves impossibly convoluted debates about committee meetings and specific senators. They say that the TVA proves that there's a limits explosion. That's not true because we are not saying that we should not include domestic violence, victims of domestic violence on the topic. However, we're saying that the process that they go through has to be through LPR. The reasonability debate, it's preferred competing interpretation causes the race to top, incentivizing the best version of the topic. The one area concedes reasonability causes judge intervention due to its arbitrary nature that undermines the purpose of debate in the first place. Debates are one of the margins, so reasonability makes the debate a point. But impact debate proves their interpretation isn't reasonable, and would inevitably links are often due to a mass reasonable version of the topic.
Dylan,
What's the time?
I have
no, I got it. 1:50.
Okay. T.
I'll use
Okay. Everyone good? Three reasons we win. First, our counter-interpretation is incredibly good and it's more legally precise, which will win an independent impact to that they haven't answered. Second, they have conceded that independent education disadvantage was the NIAC evidence on case, which significantly outweighs because they don't have an external impact in the 2NR or the 1NR. Third, we have significant defensive limits that they haven't adequately answered because they just don't seem to understand it. First, Worthington, the we meet, the non-refoulement principle of U.S. immigration law means that both refugees and asylees cannot be sent back home if their plea for asylum has been approved. That means asylees and refugees inevitably get LPR and functionally meet their interpretation. They say this isn't inevitable, but they haven't provided a single card that says there are actually barriers to getting LPR post grant of asylum. They just have to apply to get it. They conceded that non-refoulement means they get it no matter what, so there's no functional difference. Even so, the kind of status they're given doesn't determine their ground, which they've also conceded, and they still get generic ground, which checks all of their limits arguments. Now, I'll extend the counter-interpretation too. Illegal immigration is defined as getting legal permanent residence as an asylee, refugee, employment, family, or diversity status. This limits out all non-immigrant visas, which they indicate as their major limits explosion, which solves all the vast majority of their offense. You should prefer DODOF and the BRIA evidence. They cite the INA, which is the gold standard for legal immigration law, and it's the most recent piece of legislation that defines the two categories. We exclude non-immigrant visas as per this evidence, which resolves their argument. Yes, we meet our own interpretation. Changing a definition is a reduction of a restriction on immigration because the current definition restricts legal immigration in the status quo. This interpretation was also incredibly new and wasn't impacted out. It's functionally a separate totality violation that we've already proven we meet. Now, you should prefer the counter-interpretation for legal precision. Legal precision outweighs limits. They conceded unreasonability that the negative will always find the most limiting interpretation, not the best. Means you should default to legal codes and standards to check back against infinite progression. Legal precision is critically important. We need to understand how immigration policies are implemented and the limitations of the law as it currently exists. Otherwise, we leave with the possibility of more raw skills, but none of the unique education we gain from understanding immigration law this year. They say that they're precise. They don't actually have a card that cites the INA language. They just cite a bunch of immigration officials. You should prefer actual legislation because it's the most accessible, and they say the topic paper doesn't matter. Yes, it does, because it specifically included asylees and refugees in their definition. They would limit that out, and that's the most predictable for the entire community because we don't require further research. Rather, it's a question of what the community voted on and what the topic ought to be. The limits to the 200 doesn't extend a terminal impact to T. The closest he gets is saying it harms education but doesn't breathe word one. That's why it matters in the context of their model of debate. Even if you give them a terminal impact, they don't access it. They conceded terminal defense so that limits explosion is inevitable. It's true that giving asylees the plain LPR makes the act topical, then all the other people from the 34 visa categories in hundreds of countries is still topical. It's game over, which I'll explain here. The TVA they read but don't really extend proves the limits explosion. The fact that you can tack on LPR to any visa category, just like randomly giving domestic violence victims LPR, proves that you can literally access the exact same advantage ground without adjusting status or being the three visa categories, which is terminal defense to limits, and they haven't specifically answered. All of their limits defense is taken out by this because anything they could provide as being topical or solving any of the education claims made by the affirmative is necessarily all of the non-immigrant visas that they outline as being a limits explosion. The interpretation that would resolve that is just giving the people affected by that non-immigrant visa LPR, which explodes all and creates a full-out limits explosion that they don't answer. And they conceded an independent education dissad, which outweighs all of their arguments on limits. We have to talk about Trump and the NIAC evidence says that discussing domestic violence and immigration is important. If we leave them out of the debate, we don't know how to solve for violence against them, and it squeezes the discussion under the rug. You should read this evidence at the end of the debate because it's incredibly good. It also sequences before limits because our ability to discuss it at all in the first place outweighs our ability to discuss it in depth because we need to bring these issues to the forefront in order to gain an effective response from the public, and all of the the arguments that they read in the 1 and C and all of the arguments that they have against the affirmative prove that some in-depth analysis could have occurred, but they just chose to go for T, which proves the reasonability argument, what I still really don't hear word one of in the 2-1R. You should still default to reasonability unless they prove that the act was pedagogically valueless, because it improves a race to the bottom argument, and the negative will always try to find the most limiting interpretation to exclude the act to avoid the substance of the debate, which weakens content retention, which is their ultimate impact, and it weakens app testing, just because they can always default to an easy no-risk option that is a more limiting T definition, not grounded in the literature, which means you should only vote negative if they have won the debate is completely pedagogically valueless, which we have read defense
They
to.
misunderstand
Oh,
affects
they
topicality.
misunderstand affects topicality.
They don't get having 1 year after is
Having
not
1 year
affects
after is not
topicality,
affects
and it's a
topicality
guarantee.
because it's a guarantee, and it's not, and a topicality is not based off immediacy,
Yeah.
and there's
There's
not
also
an
no
external
impact.
impact to it. The extra topicality would necessarily be good because it gives you more ground, even so they don't provide a reason why this was limits.
I gotta say, this is. Would you all like a card draw?
Yeah, you are. Oh, yeah. Both sides. Just do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is that way. Go outside.